Hey everybody, Tracy Brown, good day. So I'm going to talk about, and those of you who don't know me, I'm Tracy Brown. I'm a somatic nutrition therapist and intuitive eating, dietitian and coach. And I do a lot of embodiment work. And what that means is, what embodiment, in my opinion, I did a podcast about this week. So if you haven't checked that out, I'll talk a lot more about that. We talked about our own different definitions of that. I believe, though, it's a working definition of being in your body, experiencing what's happening in it, and feeling accuracy and trust about that. And, being able to, I guess maybe even tolerate and have an acceptance for what it is that we're experiencing. So it doesn't mean it's all good. It just means that we're in it. And we can locate how we feel, and we have some confidence about that, and we're really just down and in that. So we're not going to talk about embodiment too much today, because part of the process of becoming an intuitive eater is learning to listen to hunger fullness signals and actually trust them. So there's one to actually locate it and feel it and know it, and then there's the other step, which is to honor it and continuously come back to the flow of, you feel what you feel, you do something with that feedback, and sometimes do something means eat or not eat, and then you get, more feedback by that, and then you keep on responding. And we want to work to a place where we're responding, to our body's feedback around hunger and fullness and satisfaction and energy, and whether what we're doing feels good and enlivening and give us vitality, or it doesn't, versus, what most of us, anybody basically who's watching this, probably has had a struggle with, responding to our internal cues and sensations in some way. And it's a boundary issue for the most part, of like what feels like enough or what feels like too much. Okay, so a lot of times, I'm trying to make this video too technical, but I really want people to understand maybe why it's difficult. And something that you might not think would help you that much with your signals, but actually will. And, I watch so many people go at this process on their own, which is fine. Everybody has their own path, but I don't think it has to take 2 years to figure out your hunger fullness signals. And so when we're struggling with that makes me, I think it does take a while. Honestly, for me, it took me a year and something to, probably at least a good year after I had done a lot of meal planning kind of work. And I think that looking back, if I had more of this kind of process and step-by-step process to know my signals more quickly, it would have gotten there more quickly. But again, people weren't teaching that in this way back then, so that's fine. But I want you to have something to get you going more quickly, and to understand when it feels difficult what's going on, so there's less self-judgment and less shame, and there's just, oh, okay, this is part of the process, and this is what's popping up in my window of tolerance that sometimes I can't quite be with or locate my sensations because something else feels like too much, or I'm shutting down. Okay, so I'm explaining all this too is because this is the kind of work I do. I just don't give you a hunger fullness chart and say, okay, here, what's your hunger, what's your fullness? We do all that. But when you're having a hard time locating it, my job is to help you more quickly figure out what's going on in your nervous system and with your attachment system, to understand what makes it feel overwhelming to maybe feel your signals. Okay, so something that one of my teachers taught me, this is from, sorry, my brain's going a little blank right now. I've had a lot of teachers, but Paula Scanloni, we talk a lot about, knowing where your body is in space. And this is called proprioception. And what that means is, and I'm going to have you do this exercise right now. So my teaching is very experiential. So this is what I want you to do right now. If you're watching this, or if you can't take the time right now, just listen and then come back and do this later. Here's a question for you. and this has a point to help you get more in touch with your hunger fullness signals, is how do you know where your feet are? Essentially, how do you know where I'm teaching you right now, how do you know where your body is in space? And so how do you know that your feet are below you? And so see if you can locate that. All right, and then let's try something else. What I want you to do now is basically stretch out your feet. I'm doing it right now with you, so I can feel myself doing it. Stretch out your feet out in front of you, like kind of dig your toes into the, or your heels. Sorry, dig your heels into the floor, and feel that, and try to stretch out your toes. Okay, and then I also want you to try to curl up your toes. Kind of curl them up. Don't hurt yourself. Don't cause a muscle spasm or cramp in your toes or in your feet, but curl up your toes. And how do you know that you're, what you're feeling without looking at your toes? You can just sense it, right? You can feel it. And how do you know you're even doing it without looking? You can feel it. Okay? So hopefully you've already relaxed your feet. Please do that. Okay? And now, have your feet back on the floor. And do you have a different sense of feeling where your feet are on the floor? Okay? And so a lot of times when we've been really disembodied, which if you've dieted, you've disembodied. If you've had any kind of eating disorder, you've been disembodied, because it hasn't either, we've learned to not be in our bodies to manage our food, or we've gotten out of our bodies by either being numb with restricting or numb with overeating, and all these edges are kind of blurred, like these boundaries are blurred. And so what I just did with you is help you locate where you are. And now we're going to do something a little different. So that was outside of you. Like, how do I know where my body is in space with the feet exercise? And now I want you to go inward. And instead, we're not going to try to have you notice your hunger and fullness right now. You can if you want in a second. But what I want you to do next is, can you notice anything about your heart rate internally or your body temperature? Okay, so can you notice that, let's just do body temperature. Can you notice that maybe your extremities feel cool? Or maybe they feel really warm? Or if you can, you might have to, I have to do this actually, and notice my heart rate. See if you can do that. Okay, and then the next step, if you want to, is to go in. Can you actually internally be in your stomach and feel anything? And if you don't have one of my hunger fullness charts, and I talk a lot about how to do some of this, then, or my guide, I'm going to put it in the comments below so you can get it and practice some of this. Now, some of the somatic work isn't in that guide. It's in my membership site. So each month and each module has different exercises like this to practice to get more in tune and to basically speed up this intuitive eating process, because when we get kind of out of our window of tolerance in terms of sensation and emotion, we pop out and we usually don't have a good sense. Like, let's say when you're really stressed, you don't always notice how hungry and full you are. Or if you're really stressed, all you feel is like this balled up place in your body. And it's really hard to have an appetite when you're like that. It doesn't mean that there's not physical hunger there, but we lose our appetite, or we just lose track. And some of these things that aren't so about your hunger and fullness can feel less intimidating to start with, to get more in your body. So if you practice these exercises, you actually get more body awareness. And that's a really good first step if you're like, I'm pretty clueless about my hunger and fullness, or I know it sometimes, but then when I get really distracted or really stressed, or I'm even a little spacey or zoned out, I don't know how to locate that, and I find myself just eating or drinking, and I don't know how I got to the bottom of the bag of chips. I don't know what happened. And so if we can practice some of these other things first, it can be less intimidating. It can even be a little gentler to do. So I want you to practice this stuff. Again, my videos, I really try to give very, as you all know, pretty practical stuff. And just like the surface, the stuff I talk about in these videos, I mean, we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I do that in my sessions just because I can't I try to do that in these different videos, but I can't talk about everything because these videos will go on forever. All right, so if you're just checking in now live, thank you for showing up. Please go, this video especially, if you're just checking in at the middle or the end, you're not going to kind of get what I'm doing, because it's you need to follow the beginning for sure, beginning to end. So I hope this is really helpful. I'm going to be putting lots of links at below so you can get a sense of how to go further with this if you're really interested. If you want to kind of get a little bit more nuance with your hunger and fullness work, so you can get just have a lot of tools for when you're feeling lost about this. And it takes the shame out of like feeling like I don't know what's going on and what's wrong with me and why isn't this working. Well, it works. It's just that sometimes our nervous system overrides, when we get really stressed, our ability to know what's going on. Our emotions are too high. We get it overrides these signals because sometimes the sensations get louder than what we can notice in our GI tract. In our GI tract, it's run by our nervous system so much that when emotionally we are feeling heightened or we're feeling kind of shut down, it's hard to locate our signal. So I think that's why sometimes the intuitive eating process is really kind of slow and painstaking for some people, because we're all going to get triggered by stuff. But I want some of these tools to help you, one, understand what's happening, and two, take the shame out of like you're not doing it wrong. It's just that you're contending with other things besides just locating your hunger and fullness. All right, so hope this was helpful. Look out for the links below for more information, and talk to y'all soon. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.